Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome to Gospel Minded, where we spend a few minutes each week talking about psychology, our emotions, behavioral health, and we reflect on how these important topics are related to the gospel reading for each Sunday. Like I always point out, this isn't any kind of substitute for actually getting yourself to church or participating in counseling, therapy, spiritual direction, if you're involved in any of those sort of practices. But like we know so well, like we've seen time and time again, things of our mind, our psychology, so often go beautifully together with our spirituality. If this is your first time checking out the Gospel Minded channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Either way, I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode of Gospel Minded. First things first, Merry Christmas. Here we are now in the Christmas season. And on this first Sunday after Christmas, we celebrate the Feast of the Holy Family. Now, if you saw the bonus video that I did on Christmas Day, I was talking a little bit about my favorite ever Christmas movie, Home Alone, the original Home Alone. And I got to tell you, things about that movie came to my mind again today when we heard the gospel from St. Luke. So let me read just a little bit of it for you. Again, it's that Luke gospel that highlights some of these things about the family of Jesus, Mary and Joseph, that you're only going to find in Luke's gospel. So this is from Luke chapter 2. It says, each year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to festival custom. After they had completed its days, as they were returning, the boy Jesus remained behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Thinking that he was in the caravan, they journeyed for a day and looked for him among their relatives and acquaintances, but not finding him, they returned to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astounded at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?" For they did not understand what he said to them. He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them, and his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. Wow, you know what? After reading that gospel from Luke, all of a sudden I have a little bit more sympathy for Peter and Kate McCallister for getting their kid back in Chicago while they went sauntering off to Paris for a family getaway because they didn't have some advantages. For example, Joseph was just, according to Scripture, Mary, the Immaculate Conception, sinless mother of the Creator, and Jesus, only begotten Son of God and Word made flesh. And yet even the Holy Family had some very significant challenges in their own life, starting from the beginning of that relationship with Joseph and Mary. Mary conceiving miraculously brought about some I imagine important discussion points. Then the visitation and her absence from her family, and then the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem in a manger, probably not what they had anticipated or expected, and then the persecution of Herod and the flight into Egypt and all kinds of challenges. And now today's gospel, Jesus, about 10, 12 years old, is lost in the temple, home alone, lost in Jerusalem in the temple. And Mary and Joseph say, "We've been looking for you with great anxiety." You know, whether you're Mary or Joseph, Peter or Kate McCallister, or anybody else who's got kids, I think the gospel today highlights the fact that parenting is tough, no matter who your kid or kids are, no matter what their age is, no matter what they're into. it is hard to be a parent. And so for this Holy Family Sunday, I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about what are some things we can do if you've got kids to help maintain some sanity in your life. Now, I use that kind of language because I happen to have 4 very small kids at home. But even if you've got kids who are grown, as I have heard from family members and friends, some of the stressors that come with being a parent never really go away if you're doing it right. And even if your kids are grown and in college, maybe even have families of their own, there are still things that you're concerned about and worried about. So, regardless of where you are at in your journey as a parent, there are some things that you can do. Uh, According to the literature, it's important to prioritize self-care as a parent, especially if you've got young kids. Boy, if you've got young kids, they are very needy, wanting this and that and all kinds of things all the time. And if you are consistently and it feels like constantly answering those calls and getting those needs met, it's easy to forget about taking yourself. And if you're a family man or a family woman, nobody is going to prioritize you better than you yourself. Certainly, young kids are not. You know, Augustine in Confessions talks about as a child, a young child being like the embodiment of selfishness. That's a funny way to think about it, but kids are demanding. And we need to prioritize our own self-care. Take care of yourself so you can take care of your family. And whatever that means for you, I don't know. Only you know that. But exercise is very good and important. I exercise a lot. I go out for walks a lot of times after the kids are down for sleep at night. Reading, watching movies, whatever you need to do to recharge your batteries, do it. Make sure that you're prioritizing those things that you need to do to take care of yourself. You know, everybody's parenting situation is a little bit different. But if you are raising your family or a parent together with your spouse, husband, or wife, or whatever, as much as you can, try to align with your partner. It's hard enough to manage a family and take care of kids and address their needs when you are aligned. And when there's division among the two who are the head of the household, the father and the mother, when there's that division, boy, it can be real easy for kids to see that and exploit that fracture. And so as much as you are able to, do your best to be in alignment with one another. And again, that can look a million different ways, and there are 1,000 different kinds of scenarios. But the literature suggests that the more in union the primary caregivers are, the better it's going to be when it comes to taking care and managing of kids. Then this, asking for and receiving help. Boy, especially if you've got young kids, it can be tough. And if there are others who are willing to offer assistance, you ought to take advantage of that. And sometimes you might have to go out of your way to ask somebody for some assistance. And again, that can look a lot of different ways. You know, I'm fortunate to have family who are close by, and not infrequently we'll ask family members to be with our kids so that we can do other things, which is great. Maybe you don't have that kind of setup or situation in your own life, but I do imagine that there are resources available for you and people who would be willing to help you out if you need it. And so look for those resources, ask for the help, and accept it when it's offered. Maintaining a routine. You know, young people really tend to thrive when there is some structure and some routine. And it's not just young people. A lot of us, even as we grow into adulthood, appreciate having some boundaries and some structure established. And especially young kids, as they're developing, the predictability, the stability that a routine can create is really beneficial. So whether that means school on a daily basis, I hope that there's some time for reflection with your kids, processing of, hey, how did your day go? Prayer before dinner, maybe prayer throughout the course of the day. All that kind of stuff is good, but establishing some kind of routine so there's predictability for you and your young family or your family members, that'll go a long way. Connecting with others. You know what? You and I, we're not the only people who've got families and who struggle to try and make everything work. If you can find somebody else who's sharing those same uh, concerns, who's carrying a similar kind of load, and connect with them, boy, that goes a long way. And if you can exercise empathy and put yourself in somebody else's shoes, what kind of a difference will that make for them? You know, not too long ago, we went to a restaurant, and it was one of those things where we waited for, I don't know, 20 minutes for our food to come. And it seemed like an eternity because our kids were hungry and pitching a fit and whining. So finally, our food came. And 30 seconds after our food came, my boy said, I have to go to the bathroom. I was like, so I went to the bathroom, and taking a young child to the bathroom isn't always going to happen in the snap of a finger or be without its own episode. And that was certainly the case this time. But as I was in the bathroom, finally finishing up with my son, helping him wash his hands, another father came into the bathroom with his boy, probably about the same age, saying the same kinds of stuff that I was saying to my kid. No, hurry up. No, make sure, pull your pants up, wash your hands. And this other father and I shared a glance, a knowing glance of familiar struggle. And I'll tell you, I never connected with another human being in a more intimate way than I did at that moment. But if you can connect with others and feel like others connect with you, boy, that really helps when we're journeying as parents. And then finally, expectation management. I have in my home library probably 24 books on parenting and how to do it right and what you should do and what you should not do. And you probably know what you should do and should not do because you had parents, and I'm sure they made 1,000 mistakes, and you are determined that you're not going to do the same thing that your parents did with you. But guess what? You probably are, because that's kind of the nature of the human condition. And so, expectation management. I know what I would like my fatherhood to look like. I know what I want my kids to look like. I know what I want my house to look like and my whole life around me to look like. And guess what? So often it doesn't look like the Hallmark movie that I would like it to be. And that's okay. We make do as best we can with what we've got available to us, and we just have to understand and embrace the fact that there are a lot of things, especially when we're dealing with trying to take care of our families, there are a lot of things that are outside of our control. So the things that we can control and manage and navigate, we do. And the things that we can't, it's an opportunity to surrender it to the Lord, embrace those challenges, do our best to put our best foot forward, and keep trucking along. This has only been a few minutes, but we could talk about parenting for hours and hours and hours. But I'm going to leave it with this today. But the Holy Family, they who had among them Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, had their own challenges in life. Why would we believe that our families wouldn't have challenges as well? And yet we have the tools and the resources to make do very well in the midst of those challenges and hardships. So, good stuff. I'll pray for you and your family. Please pray for me and my family. And I'll see you next time, which will be next year on Gospel Minded. Until then, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Take care.